Hello subscribers and non-subscribers, and welcome back to Chaos Head. I do want to say one thing before we actually start this up, and that is that, what is it? Clanad has, the official English translation has a release date announced for it. That release date is November 23rd, if I recall correctly. And so what I'm probably going to end up doing is bringing back Clanad starting in roughly early December. But here's the thing. I don't currently have any series that are over. I don't have any that I think would be over by the time I would restart Clanad, or continue Clanad, I guess is a better way to say it. So there's a bit of an issue there, I guess is the best way to describe it, because for me to be able to restart or continue Clanad in early December, I would have to either do a three-way rotation on Wednesdays between Clanad, this, and roommates, which I don't think is a reasonable thing to do. It's already a bit of a pain at times to effectively rotate between this and roommates, so adding Clanad into the mix I think would really ruin things. Especially since then I would not have a necessarily guaranteed schedule, because I'd be able to switch it up whenever in that case, which is not good for me in this scenario. Or I can start Clanad up on Mondays, and then once Roommates is finished, because that's, I can guarantee you, going to finish long before this series. I could then, after Roommates finish, move Clanad onto the Wednesday release date and rotate between this and Clanad. But I'm curious as to what you guys would prefer. Would you prefer for me to go and start Clanad back up on Mondays and then continue it? Or continue it on Mondays, and then once Mondays are over, or oh god, I'm struggling to say this. Okay, would you guys prefer for me to start Clanad on Monday and continue to rotate between Chaos Head and Roommates on Wednesdays, and then once Roommates is finished, since that's the most likely one to finish first, then I move Clanad into the Wednesday release schedule and rotate between this and Clanad? Or would you prefer for me to basically ignore Clanad until I finish either this or Roommates, and only then restart Clanad? In which case you guys are probably going to be waiting until sometime in Q1 of 2016. So I'm curious as to what you guys prefer for that. Personally, it doesn't really matter to me too much which I do, because either way Clanad's going to be restarted. It's just a question of when, which of course is now being left up more or less to you guys, because like I said, Roommates is not going to finish before Clanad releases, and it certainly isn't going to finish before December starts. And I'm fairly certain it's not going to finish before December is over. Especially since come winter break, I'm basically not going to be able to easily, I guess is the best way to describe it, record much of this. Because, well, my family's going to be home, and it's not really possible for me to effectively record while my family's home, so yeah. But yeah, so just let me know in the description which way you guys would prefer for that. You can leave it either in the description of this video, or you can leave it in the description of basically any of the Clanad videos that I have uploaded. It doesn't really matter to me where you leave it, but just leave it somewhere. Even if it's just going and posting a tweet on Twitter and tagging me in it. So yeah, it's up to you guys as to how you would prefer for me to go about it. I'm probably going to give you guys basically until early December. Probably like, let me pull up my calendar real quick. Probably going to give you guys until like December 7th, we'll say, to determine how you would prefer for me to go about this. So you guys have until December 7th to let me know in either the comments section of this video or any of the Clanad videos, or on Twitter or Google+, to let me know if you would prefer for Clanad to start on Wednesdays, and then on Monday, and then on Wednesdays I still rotate between this and Roommates, and then once one of those two finishes, I move Clanad onto the Wednesday release date, or would you prefer me to hold off on continuing Clan? Would you prefer for me to hold off on continuing Clanad until either this or Roommates finishes? Probably Roommates first, because that's, like I said, the most likely to finish first, because it's substantially shorter than this. I can tell you that right now. But either way, let's go and actually start up the series. Starting my timer, or let's continue. At last, she let out a small breath and released her mouse, letting her eyes fall momentarily to a piece of paper placed not far from her hands. It was a printed version of the backlog of the chat between Nightheart and Shogun, the same as what she had pushed at Nishijo Takumi yesterday.
Nishijo-kun.
His name fell from her lips, the image of Takumi's back as he sat alone on one of the benches in Shuto Park floated up in her mind. As though to erase it, she soon gave her head a little shake. Catching her breath, she whipped around to her back.
今、誰かに見られていたような。
At the end of her gaze lay the large stuffed Gero froggy enshrined atop her bed, which we can't quite see. She tilted her head, wondering if she had been imagining things, then got up, walked over to her bed, and flopped down on it face first. The sheets smelled like sunlight. Her mother must have hung them out to dry during the day. Burying her face in this reassuring scent, Yua let her eyes wander absent-mindedly. Her extremely tidy room revealed her meticulous personality. Especially the enormous bookshelves, out of place in a mere 8-tatami room, which were lined up with numerous books and had hardly a gap between any of them. Amusingly, though the bottom half held difficult-looking scholarly texts and PC-related books, the top half was buried in shoujo manga and anime DVDs. Yua let out another sigh, rolled onto her back and gazed at the ceiling.
DID.
She remembered the name of the mental illness she had been researching on her PC. Let's see. Dissociative Identity Disorder. A condition wherein a single person possesses multiple personalities. Okay, so it's what people commonly just refer to as multiple personality disorder. So, okay. Even now, an explanation of it was displayed on her monitor.
辛いんですね。
Yua thought of Takumi as she hugged the Gero froggy that sat near her pillow.
でも、私、
Yet her face soon emptied of all expression. She had gritted her teeth, and she gritted her teeth. And back to Takumi's room. It was hard to breathe, though all I'd been doing was looking things up on my PC. I felt my heart pulsing more violently than usual. As before, the presence of something watching me refused to disappear. I was still just barely holding out, keeping myself from turning around, but my limits were approaching. I howled at that something. Its true identity wasn't that demon girl, was it? Maybe she was using X-ray vision or clairvoyance or some similarly demonic power to keep me under surveillance. The prickling at the back of my neck grew steadily stronger and stronger, transforming into a pain like an electric shock. I had been sweating copiously for a while now. The collar of my t-shirt had gotten completely drenched. Unable to bear it any longer, I whirled around. All I saw was the same old room with no indication that it had undergone any change whatsoever. Shouting in a voice that sounded more like a shriek, I got up and checked to see if the door had been properly bolted. It had. A tiny bit revealed, relieved, I wiped the sweat off my forehead with my shirt sleeve. Sort of tripping up on some of these words for whatever reason. It's not like they're difficult per se, just sort of tripping up on them. Returning to my PC, I glared at the monitor anew. I had been researching precognition. When I was a child, I had seriously believed that precognitive abilities really existed. To be 100% honest with you, I still believe in them a little bit, even now. Let's see. Precognition. Knowing that something will happen before it occurs. Precognition is the act of being aware of circumstances that have yet to take place before they chronologically occur. Alternatively, behavior taken in order to learn such things, extrasensory perception, paranormal powers. Unlike prediction, a more certain type of estimation based on previous experience and other information. It generally refers to that which is based on supernatural powers or other forms of extrasensory revelation. An example of something that is called precognitive without reaching the level of ESP are the earthquake predicting safety features included in certain kinds of equipment. As a result, I had had the instinctive notion that the image the demon girl and Shogun had sent me was one that foretold the future, and I had been left with no choice but to look deeper into the matter. Perhaps, without my knowing it, the world was already full of prophets. I myself had done something similar to seeing the future when I was a child, before the bus accident. Because of that, I couldn't completely deny it. But no matter how much I researched it, everything that came up was related to the occult or magic, all kinds of sketchy-looking stuff. There was nothing purporting to scientifically prove that such powers existed, or, on the flip side, that they didn't.
一つぐらいあってもいいだろう。
Increasingly irritated, I struck viciously at my keyboard. If things stayed so vague, anxiety would make me lose the ability to hold myself together. Was I supposed to keep waiting for demons that may or may not come for me? My nerves wouldn't be able to take it. Yeah, it'd be the best to have proof that they weren't coming, but for now, I just wanted things to be black and white, clear and understandable. Now, I didn't have much of a choice left except to take a look at ChäoS occult board. It was mostly made up of white noise, lies, and absurdity. But there were also times when it had shockingly impressive news leads and information. Suppressing my impatience, I opened ChäoS main page. I jumped to the occult board and ran a search for Telling the Future. And... I got an awfully large number of hits. About 30. Was precognition the new thing on @channel? Gulping, I checked the thread titles one by one.
Phantasm. FES.
Most of the threads I'd come up with contained the words Phantasm and FES. On top of that, New Gen frequently appeared in the same line, and there were a lot of disquieting phrases like prophetic lyrics, I guess, and murderer. Googling it taught me that Phantasm was a 4-man gothic punk band currently on tour with Shibuya as their home field. They were such a popular group that they monopolized people's conversations about the indie music scene, and their vocalist was a girl by the name of FES. For the moment, wanting to pick out how they were connected to precognition, I picked the very top thread. Predictions, prophecies. All about Phantasm, New Gen 4.3, and started skimming it. Let's see. Calm down, guys. For now, just go to the show on Sunday and enjoy FES-sama's Black Mass to the fullest. Otherwise, you'll get staked to death, LOL. I read the lyrics, but I couldn't really take them in. They say stuff too vaguely, makes for a pretty shitty prophecy, but spare me from being staked, heh. LOL. Precognition, prophecies, you're making too big a deal out of it. She's not Nostradamus, just enjoy the music. I don't mind FES's lyrics. New gen indeed. All people talk about is FES. RY0, I guess? Wrote the songs. What about him? Poor guy. Or is it O? I guess it's supposed to be an O. I got tricked into finding the meaning of life in her lyrics. FES tards are fucking nasty. Even so, I want FES Sama to deride me in her cool voice while grinding her boots into my ass. Okay. Till it hurts so much it feels like my eyes are gonna fall out. Then get drunk on the feeling of stopping at the last moment like she will spit on my face from above or not. I want her to slowly cut my throat apart with a knife. I want to breathe my last. She says you're an eyesore. Okay, dude. Yeah. I don't quite know what to say about you. Raise his hand. FES Tan is my wife. I guess that's linking to... Okay, that. Also, FES... Or, save that for the masochist thread. Also, FES is my wife. Don't bump the thread. And this is what they mean by the new gen prophecy? Strike the stake, tear open the darkest night, bathe in moonlight. Thousands of hammers become your pain and are now released. Last screams float in space. The night sky will surely run red with the cross-shaped stake as your strength. You will finally reach sacred land. By the way, I'm anti-phantasm. Fanboys are scary, lol. Aren't you all getting brainwashed? Oh, supposed to be giving them the middle finger there. Idiot, you're gonna get erased. Don't expose the lyrics, stupid. Really, can't read between the lines. Kids these days.
十字の杭
These lyrics. No matter what, I couldn't believe they signified anything other than the staking I'd seen with my own eyes. Furthermore, these lyrics were from a song that had come out 2 months ago. In other words, she hadn't written them after the staking murder took place.
これが予知ってこと
One second. Okay, had to answer the phone. Sorry about that. Was it a mere culmination of coincidences, or was Phantasm 2 among the demon girl's underlings? Reading the log in more detail revealed the startling fact that all 3 new-gen incidents had been prophesized in lyrics beforehand. Except the lyrics of the songs predicted the group dive and the pregnant man hadn't been posted on an @channel. Whatever the case might have been, people seemed to think you shouldn't upload them. If you want to know that bad, go to one of their shows and buy their album, they were saying. In any event, those online were going wild trying to figure out what kind of killing method would be used in the next new-gen case, based on the lyrics for all these songs Phantasm had released up until the present. Ever since the new-gen cases had started, their independently released albums had been selling like hotcakes, and part of the media increasingly began to adopt them as the goth punk band currently experiencing a cult-like popularity among Shibuya's young people. FES was the one who wrote the lyrics. Apparently it was pronounced Fesu. Her real name remained undisclosed. Maybe she was that demon girl. Then there wouldn't be anything odd about her ability to predict the incidents several months in advance. After all, she herself was the perpetrator. I tried running an image search, but I couldn't find any photos of FES's face. They were all cell phone pics taken during concerts, so shaky that I couldn't discern anything about what she looked like. I wiped the sweat seeping out of my forehead with the hem of my t-shirt. Irritation and terror. The feeling that everything around me was a lie. The feeling that I didn't want to see anything. A whole range of emotions mixed together inside me, making my breath grow tight. I've been breathing harshly this whole time. In any case, I wanted to see FES's face for myself. With trembling fingers, I typed in my keyboard, heading for Phantasm's official site. What showed up was a plain-looking site with black as its basic theme. The words were a uniform scarlet, giving off a strange or perhaps frightening atmosphere. The site contained almost no news and not a single photograph. All that was written there was information about their shows and their discography. There wasn't a single bit about band members' profiles or the lyrics to their songs.
やっぱり犯人だけあってネットに顔写真が流出しないようにしてるのか。
She sure knew what she was doing. When I looked at their itinerary of shows, it appeared that they performed about once every 2 weeks. Their next live performance was...
あさって。
Is that it? Okay. If I went to see it, I'd be able to confirm whether or not FES was a demon girl. But once I confirmed it, where would that get me? Would I give FES over to the police? Would I weep and plead with her not to get me involved? Would I go bearing a cross and pretend to perform an exorcism? All those options were asking the impossible. She was a demon. A nasty otaku like me stood no chance of surpassing her. And if I lost to the demon girl, I'd die. My body would metamorphosize into a ruthless work of art, and I'd get put up on some wiki site as one of the new gen cases.
そんなのやだ。
I didn't, but if things continued this way, I'd never understand how I ended up as part of the image data Shogun had sent me. But if FES had nothing to do with the demon girl, maybe I could ask her for help, and find some way to fight back.
だけどやっぱり無理だ。ライブなんて行けるわけがない。
In my whole life up until now, I'd never gone to one even once. It'd be the equivalent of playing an away game. Concerts were small and dark and noisy and packed with people. Simply imagining it made me nauseous. Or nauseous. As at a loss for what to do, I held my head. As a tingling sensation in the back of my neck went on and on, it changed from a numb pain to a scorching pain, as though my skin were burning. And even if I turned around, no one was there.
もうやめてよ。
I squeezed my eyes shut and waited fervently for my sense of the gaze to vanish. I wouldn't stand for having to fret about this sensation for the rest of my life. Someday the gaze alone might be enough to kill me.
考えろ、匠。僕にできることを考えろ。
I hid in the shadows of a telephone pole and scoped out the club called Gigants. After worrying about it all day yesterday, I finally made up my mind to come here, where the concert was being held. Gigants was a striking-looking red brick building located at the entrance to a narrow road that went along Shibuya's overhead railway. Its outer walls were illuminated, giving off an atmosphere so old and sober that I almost thought I'd slipped back through time to the Showa period. Before now, I'd had no idea a place with an atmosphere like this existed in Shibuya. It was barely a 5-minute walk from the station, but I sensed a few people in my surroundings. Occasionally, a train would pass along the overhead railway, sounding a tremendous roar and making the telephone pole I hid behind tremble minutely. Until just a little earlier, there had been a lot of people in front of Gigants, most likely Phantasm fans. They wore such remarkable outfits that it would have been easy to mistake them for cosplayers. What surprised me was the fact that the overall head count seemed fairly small. For all that Phantasm was the topic of the moment on the net, only about 100 people had come. All of them had since entered the club. The show must have already started. The sound didn't leak all the way outside, though, so none of it seemed quite real to me. Though I had succeeded in keeping my pulse under control yesterday and most of today, it had started raging again the moment I arrived at the club. It was so hard to breathe I began wondering if I had some kind of heart disease. No, I understood why this was happening to me. A dense darkness surrounded this place. The demon girl and her crony Yua might be lurking somewhere nearby. That was why I had been frantically looking around, watching out in case someone tried to attack me. If I were to compare this sense of tension to something in Ensu, it was about at the level of the Wan's volcano labyrinth. The game balance in the Wan's volcano labyrinth was completely ridiculous. Its enemies were particularly strong, and it was surrounded by lava, which would kill you instantly if you so much as brushed up against it. I died there countless times. Swallowing, I scrubbed the sweat off my forehead with a hand towel. At the same time, the door at the top of the stairs to Gigant swung open, and for a second the sound of wildly beating drums resounded from within. A lone male emerged from the doorway. Dashing lightly down the stairs, he came running up to me.
Yo, Taku! Matta ka?
I was the one who had invited Misumi to this show. Because I hadn't known his cell phone number, I'd been forced to come to school today in order to talk to him about it. If I were alone, I probably wouldn't even have made as far as the front of Gigant's. Besides, even supposing I managed to enter on my own, it'd be game over for me if the demon girl were there. Therefore, I had Misumi come to perform reconnaissance for me. Of course, since he wouldn't have taken too well to the idea of being used as a scapegoat, I refrained from mentioning that part of it. He and Nanami were the only ones of whom I could have asked this favor. I picked Misumi because he was less obnoxious. I paid for both our tickets. In other words, I'd hired him to the tune of 1,000 yen.
ほらよ、これ CD な。俺自分の分も買っちまったよ。
What Misumi handed to me was the Phantasm album. They've been selling for shockingly high prices in online auctions, I think that's supposed to be. But because I'd read on 8chan that they sold them during their performances, I'd asked Misumi to go buy one for me. With this, I'd achieved half my goal. As for the other half...
いやー、予想以上にいいな、ファンタズムって。
Having just come out of the club, Misumi was a little worked up.
俺、あんまミーハーになりたくなかったんで聞こうとしなかったんだけどよ。今日ちょっと生で聞いただけでファンになっちまった。
My other request for Misumi to go inside by himself and report back to me about Phantasm members' distinguishing attributes. The band would go up on stage once the show started, so we could have just taken a quick look at them and hurried back out to tell me about them. But it had taken over 5 minutes from the start of the show before he came back. Apparently, it was because he'd listened to the whole first song.
特にボーカル。ありゃマジでいい女だぜ。お前、女見る目あるな。
Misumi really did think solely with his nether regions, so much for him saying he didn't want to follow the crowd.
どんな人だった？
ああ、そっか。報告な。なんか探偵みてえで面白いな。そう思わねえ？
Just give us your report and leave. I urged the grinning Misumi to tell me what FES looked like.
髪型はショートカットだった。
Okay, that doesn't really help much.
え？
All of a sudden, her traits had stopped overlapping with those of the demon girl. Did that mean FES wasn't the demon girl? No, wait. Don't run ahead of yourself. She could alter her hairstyle by cutting it or adding extensions. It wasn't strange to think she might have been wearing a disguise when I ran into her at the scene of the murder.
スタイルがすっげえ良くて、あと背が高かったな。ありゃ俺と同じぐらいはあるんじゃねえの？
Okay, well that doesn't help much either. Exactly how tall are you, roughly?
背が
About the same as Misumi. Masumi and I had similar statures, so in other words, FES was about 170 centimeters, or 5'7". Pretty tall for a female. But the demon girl hadn't given off that sort of image during my chance encounter with her. My memory was fuzzy, but I had the feeling that she'd been shorter than me, another unmatching trait.
他には
Hair color, eye color, things like that can help as well.
そうだな。アンニュイな雰囲気してたな。声はクールってイメージかな。結構ボソボソと喋るタイプだった。胸のサイズはまあまあ。でもゴスパンの服は妙な色気があったぜ。ああいうのもありだな。断然あり。
It was no good. I couldn't figure out anything based on hearsay. If I had only caught a brief glimpse of the demon girl in the first place. If you asked me to list her salient characteristics, I wouldn't be able to come up with much. This strategy might have been unreasonable after all.
っていうかよ、そんなにフェスに興味あるなら自分の目で見ればいいじゃねえか。ほら、行こうぜ。
Musumi pushed me in the back, forcing me to climb the stairs up into Gigant's. I frantically tried to resist, but he was stronger than me and I couldn't get away.
待って。
見たいんだろ、フェスの顔を。素直になるって。浮気ってのは男の差がだよな。たくも大人になったもんだぜ。
Who the hell would he be cheating on? He's not going out with anyone.
は
この前一緒に帰ってたメガネの子のことは今夜だけは気にすんなって。俺も田中のことは忘れるからよ。
Oh, he's talking about Yua. Okay. I don't get what you're saying. I started to dig my heels in even harder, but I froze up when I realized we'd reached the top of the stairs. It's kind of hard to push somebody up a staircase. We were only 2 stories up, but if I had lashed out here and slipped and fell, it hurt a lot, I thought, and my resistance weakened. Taking advantage of this opening, Misumi body slammed me through the door and into the club. A deafening noise hit my ears as we entered. I'd never heard of such a loud sound before. With the depths of my stomach shaking against my will, it all but gave me the illusion that my body would vibrate itself into pieces. There wasn't a single seat for the audience to use, everyone was standing. All of them swaying to the beat, shaking their upraised fists and shouting FES and Fesu. With perfect timing. It didn't quite measure up to the level of audience participation you'd find at an otaku concert, though. It was incredibly overheated. The stuffiness made me feel like throwing up. I'm an otaku, but I'm not a fan of idols or seiyuu, so if I had to put it plainly, I hated this kind of audience enthusiasm. My only salvation was the fact that no one looked over at me, though I couldn't deny that I appeared really out of place here. The people ahead of me made it hard to see the stage, the lights illuminating it were dazzling, and I could just barely recognize about 4 people standing in the midst of the brightness. As the atmosphere overwhelmed me, Musumi handed me a plastic cup with juice in it. It seemed that he'd covered the entrance fee. I'd have to make sure to pay him back later. Their performance suddenly ended. The spectators clapped and cheered. As though it had placated them, everyone lowered their raised fists. Thanks to that, my field of view cleared up, as if a path had opened for me to the stage. Now I could make out the face of the short-haired girl standing at center stage. She was obviously a different person from the demon.
今日はいつもより調子いいわ。声がクリアに聞こえる。世界がとても澄んでいる。
The voice I heard through her mic was both similar and dissimilar to that of the demon girl, who had thrown incomprehensible words at me. Just as Misumi had said, Fess had a world-weary atmosphere to her. She didn't feel boyish. At once cute and seductive, she bore about her a mysterious aura of distant solitude. The numerous silver accessories she wore about her body sparkled brilliantly in the light. They were too fantastical. I was starting to understand why people made the threads about FES on @Chan. I'd assumed the band members would approach a live performance like this more explosively, but FES spoke rather apathetically into the microphone. It seemed like the exact opposite of the adrenaline coming from the audience. Perhaps it was just her personality. But the fans learned from her example, going silent and listening intently to FES's words as she emceed?
呼吸と性の門が閉じているからかもしれない。
What'd you say? Cocytus? What language was that?
世界の均衡は大いなる意志が生まれてから数千年間保たれていた。でも今それは崩れつつある。とても不安定。だから私は歌うわ。君たちのカオスを受け入れてあげる。
I see. Maybe he was just assuming a stage persona as part of the whole goth punk thing. Ordinarily, people would certainly have trouble understanding it, but by speaking so insinuatingly, she created the sense of something mystical, making her fans' hearts easier to take hold of. In reality, FES was holding something peculiar. In her left hand was a regular microphone, but her right hand was gripping a mysterious-looking mic stand, one in the shape of a sword. Its form was so lovely as to seem sinister, and so sharp that it looked like it would slice off your fingers in an instant if you merely brushed it. It was tremendously large, almost as long as FES was tall. In addition, the portions of it with glass embedded in the shape of lines radiating an alluring blue light. I wasn't sure whether or not it was really a mic stand, but as a prop for contributing to her stage persona, it was sublime. My eyes became weirdly fastened to it. Next, FES lightly holstered up that colossal mic stand with her right hand alone. Still holding it with a reverse grip, she swept it out in a wide slash to the side. The blue light from the glassy parts traced an arc. That's so dangerous. What would she have done if she hit a spectator? What if it weren't a mic stand, but instead a sword? And in order to offer fresh blood up to the demon girl, she used that sword to cut the throat of a single audience member each night. Or something. If so, it would indeed make this live show a black mass hosted by devils. A chill shot through me, and goosebumps rose up all over my body. It might be best to get out of here as fast as possible. As I began to think that, FES murmured softly.
次は3曲目。在下に契約の地を。
Even vaster cheers of delight rose from the audience. Immediately afterward, the other Phantasm members started moving simultaneously, and for a second time, their sounds came flooding into my ears. The roar seemed like it would rupture my eardrums. Why wouldn't everyone's ears go all funny from being in a place like this? When I looked over, Misumi was totally into it, pumping his fists in the rhythm in the same manner as the other spectators. When the intro ended and FES began to sing, the lyrics made me go tense. It was a prophetic song whose lyrics had been pasted into @channel. A dark song that didn't let you sense the slightest hope of salvation. Partly because of the lyrics, but also because of the melody. It felt like something religious. The audience members who had first been going wild became less and less active as the song continued, until everyone was standing in place without uttering a single word. On the contrary, however, it was because they were so captivated, and among them were people who gazed fixedly at FES with the faces of those drowning in ecstasy. True enough, FES's voice possessed some quality that attracted people to her. Even as I battled the fear and nausea induced in me by the crowd around me, I was listening carefully to keep from missing part of her song. At the end, she repeated the chorus over and over. Strike the stake, tear open the darkest night, bathe in moonlight. As I listened to that phrase, I recalled how the demon girl had slowly turned around to face me, splashed in blood as she stood before the nailed-up corpse. My skin prickled with goose flesh. Goose flesh, okay. I had the sense that the air around me had instantly dropped several degrees in temperature. The song was over, and I'm fairly certain they have that probably meant to play on a loop. FES soaked in the reverberation of her performance, gazing down and softly swaying her body from side to side. When she abruptly raised her head without warning, without any hesitation in her gaze, she looked at me. Let's go green. It wasn't merely a matter of her looking in my general direction, or of our eyes meeting for this single second. FES was clearly looking at me. Steadily, staring fixedly, as though she were confirming my existence, as though she were searching for something inside me. Her gaze was extraordinarily searing, and, for some reason, sorrowful. As I remained unable to tear my eyes away from her, she descended from the stage into the midst of the spectators. The other Phantasm members resumed playing. But FES didn't sing. Swaying as she wandered through the audience, she languorously stripped off her top, exposing her sexy shoulders. Our quiet fans became agitated with excitement again. All of them raised their fists and started jumping wildly. They made the floor shake as if an earthquake were taking place. Yet no one attempted to touch FES, as though they were displaying their awe of a sacred being. Under ordinary circumstances, if a star was compellingly charismatic as her went down among her fans, you'd expect them to mob her. As part of an unspoken agreement, a single rule, and of their own accord, the Phantasm fanboys forbade themselves to make contact with FES's body. Even so, they felt her existence come near to them. They tasted the scent of her sweat. They touched the same air as her. These things granted her believers the highest possible joy. Perhaps she put on this kind of performance every time, or so I thought, but I doubted my eyes as I caught sight of FES's next move. She had casually started undoing the belt at her waist. When she tossed it away, her fanboys reached out all at once, each fighting to make it theirs. Casting a sidelong glance at them, FES unfastened her miniskirt. It fell to her ankles with a rustle. Her suggestive black underwear came into view. FES seemed completely unbothered by the fact that her cultists were seeing her in a state of indecency. Had she gotten high on the ambience, or was it enough? Or was it another type of performance, or else pure exhibitionism? I didn't know, but everything about her was such a turn-on that my eyes became glued to her. FES looked at me again. She smiled enticingly.
Oi, こっち来るぞ.
Her gaze unmoving, FES looked only at me. She approached gradually as though she had fixed her aim on me. And having come right up to me, her sweet sigh grazed my face, and in much the same way as a lover would, she embraced me. Her skin was damp with sweat. Her scent and her warmth were so alluring I almost had vertigo. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, pressing tight against my body. It was said that singing could be exhausting, but right now her panting passed from her skin to mine, being transmitted to me directly. Her arms clenched tight around my back, her nails ate into the nape of my neck, her thighs became entangled with my legs. I trembled all over, as if electricity had run through me. I could neither push her away, nor return her embrace. All I could do was stand stock still, eyes wide. Her fans cheered again. This time it sounded as if they were close to screaming. The other members of Phantasm began playing more violently. Shouts of FES's name reverberated back and forth in the small club. Voices crying, "Do it! Do it!" began to appear in the mix more and more often. What did they mean when they said to do it? I was completely at a loss. FES, still holding me, said nothing. Seeking help, I looked for Masumi, and was startled to find him sharing a deep kiss with a female spectator I'd never seen before. No, Masumi wasn't the only one. The other cultists, males and female alike, were throwing away their clothes and embracing each other nude and kissing. Some had already begun to take things to their natural conclusion. Pandemonium, debauchery, sultry voices and cheering, the lewd sound of flesh rubbing up against flesh, borne up by Phantasm's music. These were what took over the venue. A black mass. I understood at last. This was an obscene banquet held by the demon called FES. Swearing loyalty to her and the devil, her believers became lost in their orgy. And today I was the demon's living sacrifice. FES had chosen me as her partner. This is what it meant to go to one of Phantasm's shows. I too was getting swallowed up by the atmosphere. I felt my head start to go foggy. Anticipation for and dread toward what would happen from here on out. This sense of superiority and the rapture that came from having been chosen by FES, I felt like I was about to go crazy. FES laughed again, close to my ear. I heard her clearly despite the fact that we were being swamped in the midst of so many overflowing sounds. She had such a sexy voice. Merely hearing it, I thought I might faint. But FES tempted me further towards the abyss of pleasure. She softly bit down on my earlobe, blew her breath into my ear, and whispered,
その目、誰の目?
I figured they were going to do that. Figured they'd go, okay, and we're going to cut it there.
フェスエロいよ、フェス。
Okay. Well, either way, yeah, that's going to be the end of this episode. As always, like, favorite, comment, subscribe, share, and I'll see you guys next time. But until then, goodbye and farewell.